He's been in the news all through the general elections in India, was removed from his position, but now has been reinstated. We are discussing a lot about how Congress is going to look at its foreign policy through the prism and eyes of Sam Pitroda. Mr. Pitroda, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global. Now, let's just focus on Mr. Rahul Gandhi and the fact that he engaged overseas Indians quite a lot in the recent past. Have you seen a change in how he looked at foreign policy when he first started off and now? And what's the growth that you see? What's the difference? What's the growth?
Well, first of all, when we go out, we focus more on Indian democracy. We focus more on Indian economy, jobs, future, and not on past. We hardly discuss past unless it is absolutely necessary. We meet with political leaders, we meet with academicians, we meet with think tank people, and it's part of a process of learning and interacting. Okay. I think Rahul has benefited a lot, and people who have interacted with Rahul have also benefited. They got to know Rahul well. I mean, we would interact with, for example, all major global media people, whether it is Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Economist, Washington Post, or you name it. Okay. And those kinds of interactions, CNN, are useful to both parties. It's a dialogue. It's setting up context. So I think it has been very useful to everybody.
How has this private and public journey been when it comes to looking at the larger policies and what matters to India? And what are the little changes or the bigger changes that you've seen that have made him what he is today? Because when we see him speak today, he comes from a position of strength. Whereas when we saw him, and I have monitored all his engagements abroad when it comes to his foreign visits, they were not as strong as they are today. So what made the difference? What really changed?
We all grow in a job. We all grow. Somebody asked me the other day about, is XYZ qualified to be a prime minister? And I said, look, nobody's qualified to be a prime minister. They all grow in a job. Okay. You can't prepare a resume and say, I'm qualified to be a prime minister. But once you are in the job, you learn and you listen and you analyze. And that's what life is all about.
Okay. The Congress Party is 100 seats strong today. How are you looking at now wooing the diaspora, reaching out to overseas Indians? Something that we've seen Prime Minister Modi do quite well. So is there going to be a strategy here on how the Congress Party is going to look at this very important aspect that in the past we've not seen the focus?
Okay. First of all, Prime Minister Modi's approach that you think doing very well is based on temple people. It's very simple. Okay. So when Prime Minister Modi comes, you will see buses full of people brought in by temple people. You will have a big crowd. It'll be a big tamasha. It's an event management. So your interpretation would be, oh, what a great event. Fine, it's a great event. I respect that. But when you look at the substance of it, who are these people? What is their understanding of politics? Why were they there? Who brought them there? Things begin to look very different. I know it. I'm party to it because a lot of these are my personal friends. Okay. And we talk and we interact.
Hold on. Point. Yeah.
Okay. So don't glorify a crowd as a success. Okay.
But numbers do matter. Numbers do matter.
No, I don't think so.
Like
I don't think
how
so.
Many
I don't think numbers. No, I don't think numbers matter. I don't think numbers matter.
Are looking at Prime Minister Modi with confidence.
Understanding matter, numbers, and media promotion matters to a point. Everything matters, but to a point. The depth of it, the understanding of it is a different issue. Plus, the message of religion is easy to communicate. The message of democracy, diversity, inclusion, development, equality is difficult to communicate. So our message is much more complicated than their message. Their message is, if you believe in temple, come to my event. Our message is, if you believe in democracy, come to my event, and fellow will say, okay, fine, I believe in democracy. Why do I come to event?
So you're saying that his policies when it comes to overseas Indians is not diverse in nature?
No, it is not. What do you think? It's very simple. Just look at the audience who comes. Okay. This is my view. I could be wrong, but this is
And
my
I'm also
view.
not going to challenge you because I don't have the numbers on me. But I have traveled to quite a few of the prime minister in quite a few of the prime ministerial visits.
But at the
There are
end of the day,
certain
he's the prime minister.
sections that
No,
they invite
at
to,
the
like the
end of the
Burma
day,
Muslims in some
no,
countries.
at the end of the day, he's a prime minister of a nation. Okay, let's not forget that. So that comparison is not fair. He has the entire machinery behind him. Okay. He's not going as Narendra Modi.
That's true.
He's going as the prime minister of a nation, and he deserves that respect. My prime minister deserves that respect. Okay, he's a prime minister of 1.4 billion people, right? So I should be proud of it. I have no issues.
But would you agree that maybe in the current dispensation, the Indian diaspora has become more important part of the foreign policy, soft power policy of the Indian foreign policy toolkit than it ever was before? Would you agree?
I think,
Would you credit him
yes,
for
yes,
that?
absolutely, because Indian diaspora has become fairly successful in many parts of the world. In my generation, when I was an engineer in early days, we couldn't imagine that the chairman of IBM someday would be of Indian origin. IBM was such a distant sort of, fancy dream.
Dream. Yes.
Okay, it was not even conceivable. Okay, today, not only IBM, but Microsoft, Google, and you can go on and on. It's not just high-tech hospitals, universities, scientific laboratories. The lady who is the advisor or the science advisor to the President of the United States, Aarti Prabhakar. Okay. I have known Aarti since she was 5 years old. Okay. Aarti's father went to school with me. And no one ever thought that someone like Aarti would be in that position. And we are all proud of Aarti and many others. So the point is, Indian community has accomplished a great deal, especially in America, but also in Middle East now.
That's true.
In Asia Pacific, in Europe. I was just talking to a gentleman in Germany who just became MLA in Germany. Punjabi fellow, okay, Pramod, and I just spoke to him. Okay. Now, to have an Indian guy from Punjab become an MLA in Germany, where language is a big issue, is an accomplishment. I was in Italy and I was told that all the key farmers in Italy
Are Punjabis.
are
Primarily.
Punjabis. Okay, now this has changed in last 25 years. When I came to America 60 years ago, there were a handful of people in Chicago. Now we have 300,000 of Indian origin. Universities have presidents of Indian origin. So we should be proud of the fact that the seeds we had planted after independence on IIT, IIM, and others, and the vision our founding fathers had, has allowed us to be who we are. Sometimes my children say, Dad, why are you so interested in India and all that? because they were born and raised here and they don't understand. And I said, look, India gave me who I am. I got my master's in physics for $10. Which country would give me that?
That's true.
I come from a very poor family. My father had fourth grade education. And founding fathers thought of me, fought for the freedom. So my father could feel that his children can also accomplish something. I was born in 1942, British Raj. And if we had no independence in 47, my father would have never thought to send us to school or college. So I said, you need to understand all of these things. Okay. So going back to your question, yes, we have arrived. Yes, we are rich. Yes, we are influential. And yes, we matter to the world. And I think more and more of this is going to go on.
As part of the Congress party, now, whether if you were in government or today sitting in opposition, it's an important position that you hold. How do you see, which are the foreign policy areas where you think the Congress party should focus on, should be focused on, and where do you think the government has lagged behind?
I'm going to sort of talk from a different perspective than a politician would probably talk. Okay. First, I would say we have to really strengthen our relationship with our neighbors. I'm a firm believer in that. That is a starting point. We are a big magnet sitting right in the middle, and we need to be more generous. We need to be more open, more transparent, and we must act and behave not as a big brother, but as someone who is a true leader and who wants to build South Asia as the hub of a big global market. So my view would be, first, we started SARC. And I remember in Rajiv Gandhi's time, we used to have a lot of hope. It didn't materialize. So unless and until we give in, we have to give in. Okay, we can't do tu meme because we are just too big. I mean, with Nepal and others, we have to deal differently. So that's one big piece of foreign policy that I would focus on. Okay, not really create this, unnecessary monster across our border.
But if we keep Pakistan aside, within the neighborhood, because we are touching upon neighborhood first, within the neighborhood, do you not think this administration has done what you actually enumerated as things that should be done? Barring Pakistan, because Pakistan is a subject
I would comment on it. I would say you got to look at entire South Asia. You can't ignore one big country. Okay, because you got to solve that. Okay. And if you are going to be really looking at that as a major market like EU, Asia Pacific, North American, Mexico, Canada, US, you got to really create borderless opportunities for goods and services first. You got to increase exchange of art and culture and people, university, education, open up all that. Okay. How many people you think from Bangladesh come to study in India?
Not a very significant number, but yes, quite a bit. Quite a few.
But I'm saying just as an example. This may not be a great example.
Bangladesh is a
we can take that into health and we can take that into culture and all that. So going back to my thought with you is first I would focus on that. Then I think we have this major issue with China on the border that needs to be resolved. It is there. We have ignored it. Sometimes I think we tend to put it under the rug, hide it, okay, and sort of don't mean what we say and don't say what we mean, which has been the style all along. You got to pay attention to that. Then, then we need to really open up our processes to make it easier to start business. Our processes are still very complicated. If I had an option to start a business in India versus somewhere else, I would prefer somewhere else.
Why the ease of doing business? What the ease of
Not
doing
change,
business
not
model?
change much, not change much. According to me, when you go in details, the number of forms you have to fill. I mean, I'm on one of the boards, okay, and they want to know my daughter-in-law's income. I mean, come on, give me a break, okay? In the form, I have to fill in, what is the income of my son and his wife. I don't ask my daughter-in-law, what's your income? Just give you an example, okay? It may be right, it may not be right. But the point is, it is too bureaucratic, okay? So then a lot more investment would flow in the country. A lot more collaborations would happen. 3, our position vis-a-vis US, China,
Yes.
Russia, all that needs to be sorted out. Our engagement with EU is very important. Okay? And I spend a lot of time in EU. I spent some time in US talking to congressmen, senators, and all this. So I think India's image still needs to be improved substantially. We have done well because our economy has done well.
You will not credit anything to Prime Minister Modi?
No, I don't think it is a question of Prime Minister Modi. The credit goes to people who, really has built relationships here. Prime Minister Modi is an instrument, but it's not as an individual. Okay, as a Prime Minister of a nation, yes. As an individual, I don't think he can have a conversation with 10 executives by himself. Let's be very frank. Why doesn't he have a press conference when he comes abroad? Why doesn't he go and address the national press conference in Washington, D.C.? Okay? It's very simple. I would like Prime Minister of India to address National Press Club in Washington. Then we have arrived.
Press Club.
Yeah. But my Prime Minister won't do that. And then everybody will toot horn, that great success, great success. Okay.
Can you break it down a little, because you've spoken of a lot of things. So can we just break it down a little so that we can address a few issues? You mentioned SAARC, which is very important, and South Asia. But you said we need to start engaging Pakistan, and we need to start talking to.
No,
Pakistan.
I'm not saying start engaging Pakistan. I'm saying we need to be fair to everybody. Let's not separate Pakistan. Okay, everyone has a different relationship. Maldives has a different relationship. Nepal has different relationships. Bangladesh has different relationships. Okay, we need to sort it out for everybody. And we can't isolate one because they are all important part of SAARC.
So I'm not a warmonger, Mr. Pitroda, but on Pakistan, the problem with Pakistan when it comes to India is this. That it's not the civilian dispensation that's in control in Pakistan. And every time you start engaging the civilian dispensation, the military really creates a problem for India. Look at these general elections, for example. We had terror attacks in Jammu. Certainly, they were.
I'm not knowledgeable in all the details.
No, I'm just saying that should there be red lines for Pakistan? I mean, we would want engagement.
I don't know.
It is a nuclear
I don't
power.
know.
But
Ideally,
what are the red lines? What should the red lines be for the Congress?
I have no idea.
When you're seeking engagement,
we have to discuss. We have to discuss this on a broader platform. Okay.
No talks till terror goes on. Is that something that you agree with?
I think it requires broader conversation. I'm not the person qualified to say that. All I'm saying is that part of the world needs a better approach to creating common market. How, when, how long is something we have to discuss and debate.
The other aspect you spoke about was China. A big factor, we have a situation at the border. We still do not know how long this is going to take till there's an absolute resolution. But we also see a very aggressive China stringing, the string of pearls kind of an attitude towards India, where we see a huge influence, growing influence of China in various parts across surrounding India, the country surrounding India. So it is a situation that we have to handle and manage. But although we need to do that, China is an indispensable force in the global supply chain. So how do you see, would it have been different if Congress was in power and was engaging China? How would you have dealt with China? Because I see a lot of criticism, but how would you have then dealt with China, a very aggressive China?
Well, first of all, we must recognize that we have to coexist with China. Confrontation attitude is not going to work for anybody. China and India has a very large border, a lot of history and baggage. And it is not that you can survive without China. China is far more richer than we are today. I remember going to China in 1981, and Shanghai was even worse than Mumbai at that time. I used to spend a lot of time in China, going back and forth to Tianjin and Beijing. And today, Shanghai is so very different. Beijing is so very different. Tianjin is so very different. So they have been able to, right or wrong, build economic prosperity in the back of US industry, which decided to shift all the jobs because they didn't want to deal with labor problem. And now it is biting them back because there are no manufacturing jobs in the US or anywhere else for that matter. China produces everything because Chinese could bring in 100,000 people from village to live in bunkers, to work for 10 hours a day at very little price, okay, or cost. And that has changed global logistics completely. Okay. India has to think through that, saying, how do we capture that market? How do we become a player in that market? Okay. And it's a very difficult question. Okay. I'll tell you, once I had a meeting during Dr. Manmohan Singh's time with all the industrialists in Silicon Valley. And we were talking about bringing, investments to India. And one of the, I think Nike executive told me, he said, Mr. Pitroda, we are ready to come to India, but we don't think there is logistics. This was, 15 years ago, but there is no logistics. I said, what do you mean? He said, look, I need water, power, and I need guarantee that you will get me 30,000 young people to work near Kandla. So I can move all my production from China to Kandla so I can serve Gulf market. Okay. I said, look, I can't promise you 30,000 young people. In a democracy, it doesn't work that way. China can promise you 30,000.
And herd 30,000 people to
Exactly.
Kandla.
So I said, look, it is not possible. I'm just sharing with you personal story.
Yes.
Okay. I said, that's the way we are. Okay. So I think Chinese, going back to your question, Chinese issue has to be sorted out. Okay.
What's your advice? What's your advice to the Congress Party? Is there one on China?
I don't have advice for anybody. I have input.
Okay, what's your input? I see that you're keeping away from the word
No,
advice.
no, but I'm telling you, I'm telling this all the time, even to my family. No, this is not new.
What's your input? What's your input?
This is not new, please. Okay, it is not new at all. Okay. My input is that we need to have a special dialogue with China on business, on economy, on borders. Okay. And we have to really collaborate together. It is not going to be easy for us. We are not in the position that US is. US is far away from China. US can take a different position. Okay. We are right in the middle of, big border.
Mr. Pitroda, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your views on various aspects that are important to India and part of India's foreign policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wish you all the best, and let's
Thank
remain in touch.
you. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.